The St. Louis Blues bounced back from their Game 3 loss to the Minnesota Wild with an offensive outburst in Game 4 with 6 goals in just 2 periods of play, ending Game 4 with the St. Louis Blues taking a 6-1 victory over the Wild and tying up the series 2-2. Here with me now to talk about his predictions for Game 5 is expert handicapper Dave Golikoff. Dave, Game 4, what did it prove to us? I'll tell you one thing, it definitely showed me this series can change in an instant. Game 3 and Game 4 were two totally different sides of the spectrum, and now the Blues are coming off Game 4 with high momentum and heading back to their home ice to St. Louis in Game 5. To me, the Wild seem to be at a really big disadvantage here on the road, and they're now coming off their worst playoff loss in franchise history. What will they need to do to take the win on Friday, Dave?
Well, the Wild actually played pretty well on the road, so I wouldn't be surprised if they do bounce back. And this series is, as you've mentioned, been so Jekyll and Hyde from one game to another. Everything changes so drastically. St. Louis loses at home in Game 1, then wins comfortably 4-1 in Game 2. Then they lose 3-0 in Game 3 with a completely listless performance, like across the board. They had 16 penalty minutes. The Wild had 0. They had 3 takeaways. The Wild had 17. The Blues had just 10 shots in the first 2 periods of game number 3, and obviously scored no goals, had no power plays in that game. And then all of a sudden, on the heels of that, they come out with their best effort. So after their worst effort, it's probably their best effort in the playoffs in maybe 2-3 years. And not only did they play great, they chased Devan Dubnyk, which is not something that's really been done in the last, as long as he's been in Minnesota. So kind of a bizarre situation, and it's tough to handicap these games. I think what I've learned so far is don't put too much stock in what we've seen in the previous game. That being the case, I think Minnesota might be the better play here, as this is a team that's been strong on the road down the stretch of the season. So I think that's maybe what I'll net here.
Okay, so it sounds like you're just going to go ahead and go for a side here, Dave. There's not a better play for us.
Well, I think it's a tough game to handicap. This has been a very difficult series to handicap as you look at the numbers. Not only has the side been tricky, but overs and unders as well. You got an over in the first one, push in the second, clear under in the third, and then a clear over in the fourth game. So very tricky in regards to figuring out what's going to happen next. But I think Minnesota gets the job done here on the road. They have now won, I think they've won 13 of their last 15 away games. This is a team that's been comfortable on the road all year. I know that St. Louis looks good right now, but they looked good after game number 2 as well. And then they were completely lifeless in the game to follow that up. So I think it's a series of adjustments. Minnesota's been 24-17 on the road all year. They finished up really strong. I expect a bounce back effort from Devan Dubnyk, and I think the Wild are worth a play as a plus 125 road dog here.
Once again, expert on NHL odds, Dave Golikoff, offering up free picks on Game 5 of the Wild versus Blues showdown tomorrow night. Let us know what you think about those picks, questions, or comments you've got for Dave on the series. Hit us up on Twitter at SBR Sports Picks, find us on Facebook at Sportsbook Review, or just comment below this video. For all the best plays and predictions for the NHL playoffs, you can only find it right here with us at Sportsbook Review.